Okay, so instead of hitting pause, I actually hit finish. So this is just a second video instead of a continuation. But hey, we're all still here. So, like I said, we will talk about where this came from. Okay? This is just basically a rule, a formula that somebody realized works. We've spent a lot of time looking at different rules or different formulas. Somebody figured this out. Somebody much smarter than me, if you could believe that's possible. So let's take our previous equation from our warm-up. And we're using the same exact equation from our warm-up. And if we're using the same equation, that means we should get the same answers. It is the same equation, so we should get the same answers. And let's go back and even though I don't have it written down here, when we found the x-intercepts, we got -2 and 4. That's what we got. I remember that. Okay? So to solve a quadratic equation means to find the x-intercepts. Those are also called solutions, zeros, and roots. Those are also called solutions, zeros, and roots. And so here's what a question might look like. It would say find the roots of the equation y equals -x squared plus 2x plus 8. Okay, that's what a question would look like. And what does that mean? That just means find the x-intercepts. That's all it means. But we are not going to use Xbox. We're going to use the quadratic formula. So what do we need? We need to know a equals -1. We remember that. We need to know b equals 2. We remember that. And we need to know c equals 8. And so I'm just going to take these values and I'm going to just plug them into this crazy formula. And by doing that, Mr. Eckert is just taking a different street to the park. So here we go. X equals -b. Instead of writing b, I'm going to write 2. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, which would be 2 squared, minus 4 times, times a. A is -1 times c, which is 8. And that whole thing goes over 2 times a. 2 times whatever a is -1. Now I'm going to take a sip of tea, and you're going to get caught up so that you have all of that written down. A little morning stretch there. And now we just simplify. Negative times 2 is -2. Plus or minus the square root of 2 squared. 2 squared means 2 times itself. 2 times 2 is 4. Let's see. Minus a negative. Negative times a negative. Negative times a negative is a positive. And watch how I check these out. 4 times 1 is 4. Times 8 is 32. 4 times 1 is 4. So these equal 4, and then multiply that times 8, and it's 32. And I already took care of the negatives. Negative times a negative is a positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. All over 2 times negative 1, negative 2. Just need to move it up a little bit so you can see better. All right, x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 32, 36, all over negative 2. So, hopefully we learned our square roots when we were a little bit younger. X equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 36. What times itself equals 36 is 6. All over negative 2. And when I get to this point, I'm going to just move it over a little bit. When I get to this point, I'm going to end up with 2 answers. X equals negative 2 plus 6, negative 2 minus 6. Okay, because the whole time I've been saying plus or minus, plus or minus, plus or minus, and I have to do both. I have to do both. So I've got x equals negative 2 plus 6. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Negative 2 minus 6. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8. And my very last step, 4 over negative 2, negative over a negative. Negative over a negative becomes a positive 4. So, what was that road to the park? Was that a little bit longer of a trip for Mr. Eckert to get to the park than just doing Xbox? It might have been, but look, I got to the park. I got the same exact answer. Negative 2, 4. Negative 2 and 4. Okay? Quadratic formula. All it means is that we're getting the x-intercepts, which are also called the roots, which are also called the solutions, which are also called the zeros. It all means we're getting the same thing. It's just another way of getting there. Okay? It's just another way of getting there. Time to practice.